Marine litter has long been a problem in Belize. Trash that is either deliberately or accidentally discarded oftentimes finds its way into our waterways. The man-made waste is not just an eyesore but has public health implications and is a serious environmental hazard. But just how big is marine debris problem in Belize? According to Victor Shaw of the Coastal Zone Management Authority, they did a sampling at 9 sites along the coast earlier this year, and the findings were concerning.
We do have a litter issue. We have about 26.35, if I'm not mistaken, items per meter square of Belizean beaches, and the biggest issue is that of plastics. About 85% of all litter we sampled were plastics. So that's a huge percentile difference in comparison to the second highest, which was metals, which was at 5%. So you could just imagine how much plastics we have on our beach, and this is just a small reflection of just how versatile and durable plastics are. The plastics, they are the most frequent, and they have the highest possibility of killing because of ghost fishing. They're mistaken for prey by predators. Some of the predators choke on them. They destroy the natural habitats. If you have large fragments of litter getting away, such as large sea nets or shipwrecks, once they hit coral reefs or any type of marine habitat, they destroy it, and you're losing your fish stocks, your nursery grounds, and it's just really going to destroy the environment if it persists.
And that is why the Coastal Zone is hosting a workshop to train partners, including the Scouts Association of Belize and Oceania, on how to use a standardized methodology to quantify and determine the origin of litter found along the coastline. It is just another step to take during a beach cleanup activity.
You run a transect starting at the water line to the end of the beach. It has to be perpendicular to the beach. Then you identify the sampling locations. We usually advise 2 to 6 sampling locations. It's at the water line, the high tide line, the dry area, and the end of the beach, in between the high tide line, right? The reason we identified these areas is because it would tell us that if it's more to the end of the beach, the possibilities or the probability that it's coming from a local land-based source is high. If it's on the water line or at the high tide line, the possibility that it's being washed ashore from some unknown distal source is higher, right? So it's trying to identify where is it coming from, and then when you count the amount of trash within these sampling stations, which are 1 meter squared, you'll also get an understanding of how much trash now is coming in. Because if you say you're getting about 20 items per meter square on the beach, that means anytime you go on any beach, you'll definitely guarantee to find 20 items in 1 meter, and that's a lot. If you really think about it, because a meter is just 3 feet by 3 feet, right? So we're also looking at that. And lastly, we're looking at biotic interaction. Does the trash have teeth marks on it? Does it look like it has algae growing on it, or it has barnacles on it? This would mean that it has been in the water for an extended period of time, possibly upwards of 3 months, right? And this will also help us to, again, determine whether or not the problem is land-based or sea-based.
The methodology is easy and simple enough to be used by an 8-year-old, yet it can produce quality findings to be used in the management of our marine environment.
It does make it easier when it comes to quantifying, especially when we're identifying maybe the most frequently encountered litter on our beach, when we're trying to identify drivers behind it, when we're trying to identify sources of the litter on our beaches. Then this methodology would make it easier to do so. If you do a regular beach cleanup, meaning if you just go out there and you take all the litter off the beach and you just wait, and sure, you did a good job, but did you really check if this litter was coming from a distal source, meaning that it was something coming from another country that because of ocean currents it made it to our beaches? Did you check that maybe it was some flooding event happened upstream and it washed it all the way down to our coastline, or was it maybe some guys just going out to the beach having fun and they leave litter behind? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it easier to identify the sources and also quantify it into a standard unit. And the unit we're using is the number of items per meter square of beach. We'd be able to create bite-sized data infographics that we could share with the general public, showing that, guys, over the X amount of years, this is what has been on our beach. This is how much we believe that the Belizean population is contributing to it. And these are these are things you could do to reduce it. Right? We could also identify maybe other drivers such as lack of proper trash receptacles, because you might not want to litter, but if you're on a beach, you're swimming and whatnot, and you do produce litter, maybe plastic bottles or containers in which or bags that you brought food in, it will blow away if you leave it there. But if you don't have a trash receptacle to place it in, what choice do you left with? Are you left with because your suit might not have any room to put any litter in or to hold on to? So it's not only to say, hey, you're doing bad. It's to say, this is how we could maybe improve our situation.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.